Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the PBSC podcast. This is Mark and Steve. This is episode 305.
Yeah.
Now, we will say right out of the gate, this is a rather triggering title. My porn-addicted partner uses photos of family and friends to fantasize. I cannot get over this. This is from a really heartfelt submission by a partner. Yeah. Steve and I have seen this countless times over the last 20 plus years that we've been doing this work. We're just going to read what she submitted, very raw and real, and then we're going to look to address this. So here's what she says. We've been together 12 years, married 7. I recently confronted my husband about using porn more than I was comfortable with. I was the only one initiating sex, and it seemed like he didn't care about it anymore, which made me start thinking that he must be taking care of this himself. He admitted to using porn almost daily, which we're almost sure included masturbation. And I then spiraled and was asking if he had ever done it with people he knows in real life, right? The fantasizing, the pornography, all the rest of it. Come to find out, he did admit that he would often use coworkers, clients, my friends, his friends' wives, social media pictures. And then she says, I can understand to an extent using obvious explicit material, like the regular pornography that's out there, although I'm still very betrayed and very upset about that. But to find out that he has been using people's totally normal pictures, like selfies, and people that we both know, and he's been using them for that, I just don't understand. I'm having a hard time believing he ever loved me. And if he has been fantasizing about people he knows in that way, our whole relationship, how can you scroll past pictures of people's kids and families to find one picture of some cleavage and then use that for fantasy and self-stimulation? It's so disturbing. How can he say he never actually wanted anything with these people in real life? That he had some kind of actual attraction and interest in them? I just cannot get over this. Oof. Yeah, that's a really heartbreaking submission. You know, Steve, you and I, we've been doing this a long time. How many of these kinds of betrayed partner submissions have we experienced? Right? You can hear the heartbreaking confusion, the bewilderment, the absolute just earth-shattering betrayal, where they're just like, I cannot understand, right? She's the things that really jumped out at me in her submission. She said, I just don't understand. I'm having a hard time believing he ever loved me. If he has been fantasizing about people he knows in this way, our whole relationship, how can he say he never actually wanted anything with these people in real life? You just hear the absolute confusion at the deepest level. We have seen this so much.
Well, and it does. I mean, there's a lot to say about this, right? We want to kind of break this down into a couple of pieces. This podcast for those who are listening, because we know this is a common issue, and we want to be. I guess first of all, I want to say simply because something is, and I know this runs counterculture to what we oftentimes kind of experience in regular culture, but simply because something is common or is more progressively common or what have you, doesn't diminish impact. Sometimes I think we kind of operate under that premise, don't we? Where we're, because we see everyone else doing it, or we see it more common, then that somehow makes it okay. You
No.
know, I remember this kind of happened with sex trafficking, right? I remember when that kind of became a big deal in our culture a couple of decades ago. And over the years, it's kind of been unfortunate because culturally, it's almost, when you look at certain circles, it's kind of like, well, that's just part of the normal world we live in. No, it's not.
No, it's not. Not
Right?
anymore.
It's not. Simply
No.
because it's common or the world over doesn't make it okay. And the same applies here. So we just want to tell you, partners, that, we hear you, and we know that this is it. Just because you may be one of many, many women who are finding yourself struggling with a common cause doesn't make your situation less grievous or unfair, or frankly, in this case, to I think to a logical or to a healthy mind is probably the best way to put it. This kind of thing can seem really disturbing and very difficult to even process, right? Why in the world would he be acting out with either pictures of friends or family, and not only that, but to pictures that seemingly have no sexual value, right? Like they're just very uh what would be the term, innocent, or not charged or typical or whatever. Like,
Well,
what
and,
is
and,
going
and
on here?
the really confusing part for her and for everyone is why would he have to scroll through all the pictures of kids and families and scroll through all of those, quote, normal, healthy photos to try to get to the one that
Mm,
shows a little bit of cleavage, and then he can settle on that one. But he had to go through all those other ones to get there. Didn't he feel something when he was going through all those other photos? Didn't wasn't his conscience triggered? Didn't he think about our marriage or our family or any of that? How I don't get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, to the logical based brain, right? Those are very healthy thoughts.
Yep.
A few episodes ago, podcast episodes, we made a statement about, we brought up what we've brought up occasionally before, which is we kind of call it the X factor, or the unknown factor, the part of addiction that, I think, is, no matter how much a person tries to empathize and connect with an addict and with what they may be thinking and feeling, my experience has taught me, and I know Mark has had a similar experience, where there is a component to this, however big or small, that just doesn't make sense because it's not rooted in logical thinking. It's rooted in addiction-based thinking, right? And addiction-based thinking takes things that are otherwise optional, and among other things, turns them into things that are not optional, right? Elements or of a person's life that either would never be healthy or might be healthy in a way under the right circumstance and in the right lens, like sex, become something far bigger, more expansive, more pernicious, more all-encompassing than they were ever meant to be. And that elicits, among other things, that dependency elicits behavior that really runs contrary to the logic-based mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Contrary to the value system, contrary to right all kinds of normal, healthy, moral. Right. You could just keep adding to the list. And
yeah.
as I read this, I looked back on my own deep addiction years. And Steve, you and I have talked about this. As we look back on those years of ours personally, we have a hard time today relating to quote that guy.
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
horrified by that guy. I look at the way he thought, the way he behaved, the way he acted, and I find myself dumbfounded today. It's like, what in the world? Right. And we don't say that. I want to be, make sure that we're careful in our communication. There is a neuroscience. There is a logical science behind this crazy addiction. And none of that is an excuse. It doesn't excuse accountability. It does not excuse choices. I think if it's looked at properly, it actually increases accountability once you understand how it really works.
Mm.
But I look at where my addiction origins started, and it really started in my survival, pain avoiding, pleasure seeking brain when I was pretty young. I had some pretty tough stuff growing up, and I learned very at a very early age that there were some very powerful, easily accessible ways to avoid pain and to self-soothe and to numb out and check out and seek immediate pleasure to cope with life, to avoid the hard. And once my brain learned that those outlets were there and it started relying on those outlets, right, for all of this escape, avoid, cope, soothe, path of least resistance, once I got locked into those as my solutions in life, I was trapped,
Yeah.
like literally locked in. And here's the sad part about that, as I've done so much work over the years to look at that, because I turned to those outlets, and in many ways, it wasn't of my initial making. I was exposed to a lot of those outlets, pornography. I was introduced to masturbation by an older uncle when I was just a little kid, where that was done in front of me. There were lots of ways that my culture and my family and a lot of dysfunctional people introduced me to these things. And then, of course, I discovered what they could do in an immediate coping and escape and gratification and soothing way. And once my brain locked onto that, it was so powerfully habitual almost immediately. But the sad part was there were some, and this, I hope every guy who struggles with addiction or compulsion is listening to me right now. There were key points along the way of my growing up, key emotional junctures, signposts, forks in the road, where under normal, healthy circumstances, we face hard things and we emotionally mature. We become emotionally resilient by facing life and on life's terms head on and learning how to cope with it in healthy ways. And those maturity points along the way are critical for us to grow up and to be emotionally mature and to be resilient and functional. I skipped almost all of those because I had these outlets to run to instead of facing life. And I ended up horribly emotionally immature, clear into my 30s and my 40s. Right?
And I think you're spot on, Mark. And I think for all of us addicts, right, that journey without some sort of disruption to the cycle, the problem with that is it deepens on itself, right? The more we depend on the drug, right? In this case, sex, the more we depend on the drug, right? And the more we distance and isolate ourselves from other healthy coping factors.
Yep.
And the pursuit of the addiction in many ways becomes life. It's that switch that we hear talked about in 12-step groups where, for a while there, every addict was working their addiction. But at some point or in time or another, the addiction begins to work the addict.
And
Um,
and you get to the place where you where coping with life is so fully and utterly dependent on those pathways and going to those outlets that this is where the confusion comes in for partners who say, how could he throw everyone and everything that he says he cares about under the bus?
yeah.
Because he has a brain that is fully locked on to that as not just pleasure outlets anymore, as a way to stay alive. Right?
Yeah.
It's life. It's like oxygen. And it's Steve, you and I have called this over the years. We call it limbic versus logic. The limbic system of the brain versus the logic system of the brain. And the limbic system has no logic. It's hell bent on just avoiding pain or seeking pleasure. That's it. And people, how could you do that? Well, he was in his limbic brain where he could not only wasn't he it wasn't that he didn't want to think logically, he could not because that part of the brain wasn't operational. Limbic versus logic. It's right. That's what we call addiction insanity.
Yeah, we moved progressively down the addiction funnel that Mark describes in some of his earliest books. And you get to that point where Well, doesn't he, partners we hear frequently say, well, doesn't he care about me? Doesn't he care about our family? Here's the cold, hard reality, speaking from experience. In those moments, no, he doesn't.
That part of his brain doesn't.
Because he doesn't even see them.
No,
When you get far enough down that funnel, you become so zeroed in. Now, that's not authentic, but he becomes so zeroed in with those horse blinders that all he sees is the release, is the
is that
drug, is the
drug?
escape.
That's
That's it.
it. And keep in mind, this is not just porn and sex addiction.
No, this is the same for any addiction.
You and I have worked with many addictions, all kinds of drugs and alcohol, gambling, just the list is extensive.
Yeah.
What can cause us to go into this limbic brain place. And the problem with it is that the addiction, and she says something, she sort of alluded to it a little bit. I To an extent, I can see how just being involved with regular pornography could be a thing. We have to be really careful in this culture, as you said, Steve, tends to quote normalize dysfunctional, unhealthy stuff. You can't just get involved with just quote regular pornography as a guy or as a man or a woman or a kid, because this part of the brain is not content to just stay at one level place. It's the path is this path of obsession addiction is progressive, right? The limbic brain knows no limits. It's like we call it, it's insatiable. It will always seek new levels of novelty, new levels of intensity, new levels of variety, even to the unthinkable place that you thought you would never go, like using pictures of family and friends of colleagues to fantasize and masturbate to. Once you head down that path, if you think you can control it, you are deadly mistaken.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that the last piece of that before we kind of shift gears into the where do we go from here, right? Is it recognizing that with any just with it as with any addiction, there are no limits.
No,
This is a progressive disease, and without some sort of intervention, the addiction will just keep going. The addict who starts with one addiction will eventually deepen in that one or cross to another. What starts with pornography and inevitably begins to cross other boundaries. That is absolutely the case. And so, something to keep in mind as well is it is a progressive disease. And it just speaks to this idea again of because I can already hear a partner in my mind, right? From any session over the last week, or if I was to say that to them if they were a new client, say something like, "Well, that makes no sense." You're right, it doesn't.
no, it
Why
doesn't.
would you imbibe more poison after being poisoned? It doesn't make sense. It only, but again, unless you understand the psychology of addiction and how, again, it's a self-fulfilling cycle that deepens itself. It's self-perpetuating. It's like a perpetual motion machine, but in all the wrong ways. So the question then becomes, now that we all need to watch an episode of Care Bears after that discussion, where does this partner go from here?
Yeah,
Where do we
yeah.
move? What's the solution? We've talked about the problem. Where do we go? Where does she go? But also when she's not asking this in the submission, but I guess you could say we're throwing it in as a bonus, right? Because it's part of the solution is what is his path forward if this thing's going to
Yeah.
make traction?
Where does he go?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's start with her. As we you and I were talking about this as we prepared for this episode, it's something that we have seen consistently as being so critical. The betrayer, the abuser, cannot heal the betrayed or the abused. And bless their hearts, we see so many partners who want so desperately to fix this, heal this with this addict partner, but he is not in the place to do that, nor should he be, right? At least, and we'll talk more about what he can do in a minute. But it's crucial for this partner to establish an outside support system that is not him as quickly as possible. Why? This betrayal is so deep, this confusion is so immense that she cannot figure this out on her own. She needs to be able to engage with other women who are farther down this path and can give her a sense of reality, can tell her what they've experienced, can give her a much broader perspective than she's capable of having. Right? Trauma narrows the brain down to its very basic survival sense. And it's very hard to quote, make sense of things when you're in that traumatized state. So her outside support system, a 12-step group of some type, therapy, deeply trusted, friend or family member, she's got to have other people that she brings in immediately. So that'd be one of the first things I would encourage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and there are a lot of steps to this, right? A lot of components. And so if you need to come back and, rewatch this again, that would not shock any of us. And we would recommend that you do that. Once you've got that support system established, I'm gonna suggest a shift. Okay. And admittedly, I'm not gonna make Mark own this because I threw this in. So if you're angry and need to send something into the podcast, address it to me.
Address it to Steve. Hey, everybody. PBSC podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today.
Hey, everybody. PBSC podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys in D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Ah, love that. Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today. But we're just going to throw out a premise here because she says in her submission, how do I get over this? Well, Mark and I have been doing a lot of extensive training in the world of trauma. We've been working with it a long time. A recent training that we attended was interesting. The presenter was talking about using a new word that I hadn't heard associated with trauma before, at least. And he talked about attending to trauma as a
Attending
professional,
trauma.
as opposed to healing it. Now, I've heard terminology, and in my line of work and Mark's line of work, our experience would show us that trauma is a wound that we can help to heal, but that it does, there are scars along the way, and that healing from trauma does not mean a reversion to a pre-trauma state.
No.
It means post-traumatic growth. But I liked that idea of this idea that, trauma is something that we do in many ways attend to. And whatever that healing journey looks like, there are pieces to that attending that is important. And I think the first one is maybe considering a shift in the questioning rather than asking oneself, if you are a partner listening to this, how do I get over this? What if you were to shift to a mindset that somehow resonated along the lines of, what do I need to do, or what do I need from him to move to a place of acceptance of this? And then what do I need from him to move forward? Now, before pitchforks come out, let's be really clear. We talk about this in Dare to Connect all the time. Let's talk about the term acceptance, how it's being used here.
That's an important distinction, isn't it?
Because again, culturally speaking, we're all kind of wired. When we hear acceptance, too often, what does that mean? Well, you need to be okay with it. You need to be on board with it. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be supportive of it.
Yeah, you need to let it go. You need to move on. And Steve's not using the word acceptance in any of those
Not in
words.
any way, shape, or form are we
Nope.
using it that way.
Nope.
Acceptance means embracing reality as it is
Mm-hmm.
and making conscious choices of embracing that reality, again, for what it is. Again, not in a loving way or being okay with it, but incorporating it, right? It's hard to describe this on a podcast when we're not able to interact with you. But many partners that we work with become stuck in this place of, they know that this trauma has happened. They know that these things have occurred, but being asked to accept, because they're oftentimes looking at it through the lens of what we were just talking about, is too far of a bridge. They get stuck in this place of, I'm offended by this. I am disgusted by this. It's not okay. But then I also can't move forward because accepting it would mean being okay with it. And that's not the definition we're using here. This means acknowledging reality as it is, right?
Yep. Here's what it is.
Yes.
And now what am I going to do next?
When there's a conflict somewhere in the world, we talked about child sex trafficking at the beginning of this. We use it as another example. I abhor, as do probably all of you, abhor the fact that sex trafficking, one, is a thing, and two, that it's prevalent. It's awful.
It's despicable,
It's despicable on every level.
soul crushing.
But if we don't, as a culture, move to a place of acceptance around it, in the definition I'm using, what will happen? It's something that we just abhor and don't like, and we want to be averse to, and we'll just run from. Accepting this as a problem is the first step towards what? Taking action, whether
Exactly.
it's politically or otherwise. Look, this, good or bad, this is what it is. What do we do about it?
That's
That's the kind of acceptance that we're
yeah.
talking about.
Yep. That's what we're
Doesn't make it okay. It means
yeah.
saying, this is reality. I'm embracing reality. It is now. What's the next step in having embraced it? Right.
which travels the gamut.
Yes, it does.
As a partner receives outside support, perhaps enters into therapy and really gets, has help navigating through all this. She may be on one side that says, we are completely, utterly done.
Yeah.
This is a deal breaker. It's over. All the way from that to the whole other side that says, I believe he's a good man. I don't fully understand, but I can at least see the whole neuroscience of addiction and the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and that whole thing. And I would at least like to give this a try and see if we can stay together.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that, and it could be anything in between those two.
Well, and if I can, I'm just going to share. Years ago, I was running a group for another company. This was right at the beginning of my career, but I heard an example of this level of acceptance by a partner. It's the best one I think I've ever heard in my entire career. We were running a group where she was reading what we refer to in part of the work that Mark and I do with like formal disclosures. She was reading one of four letters, and this particular as part of the disclosure process, and this in particular was a letter of acceptance in the lens that we're talking about. And this was in front of a big group. And so she's standing there with her husband in front of this combined group of addicts and partners who've been working on this informal disclosure process for months as a part of this program. And she held up her paper and she started off with this: I accept the fact that you are an addict, and that if I choose to stay with you, that means certain things. And then she proceeded to talk about it, which
Wow.
was awesome. It wasn't judgmental. It wasn't mean. It was very loving, but it was very factual. That conveyed, I have accepted the depth of your addiction, having understood it, and that if I choose to stay in this relationship, that will carry certain pros, but it will most definitely carry certain cons.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about here,
Right.
right? Is that kind of acceptance.
Mm.
And so hopefully that makes sense. It's really critical you all understand that. Otherwise, you're just gonna like look up pictures of Steve online and print them off and set them on fire or something. That's not gonna be good for
Yeah. Yeah.
anybody.
Please don't misinterpret the use of that word acceptance because we use it very differently here.
It will never be okay,
Never.
but it still is.
It still is.
And
Right.
that is a necessary catalyst to healing.
Now, as
Right.
she gets outside support and she gets to the place where she at least starts to have an increasingly clear understanding about what all this means for her, for him, for them, now she enters this place, which is so crucial, of learning how to establish clear and firm boundaries around what? Not boundaries intended to make him change or control what he does or doesn't do. Clear and firm boundaries that she sets up, having now identified her authentic wants and needs individually and in this relationship. Here's what I want. Here's what I need in order to be true to myself, and in order for this relationship to have a chance. And I am now establishing boundaries around those wants and needs with clear outcomes and clear consequences attached to them. This is not me trying to control you. This is me keeping myself authentic and safe and proceeding forward on my life journey. That boundaries process is going to be critical for her.
Yeah,
And I talk
absolutely.
about that a
100%.
lot. In fact, we just entered into a phase in our Dare to Connect program where we're just getting ready to look at boundaries really in a deep, deep dive. Probably it might end up lasting a few months. So if you're thinking of a time to get into Dare to Connect, this would be a good one.
Absolutely. 100%. daretoconnectnow.com, guys. You just go there. There's a free 2-week trial you can grab. Click on the enroll button, and we'll get you started. We'd love to have you come join us with all the other benefits there as well. So here we have as a beginning point for this partner, right? And we want to be clear, and I know this can cause fear for maybe some of the addicts watching, but this is the reality. Not all levels of acceptance and levels of healing mean moving forward in the relationship.
It's true.
Nevertheless, this kind of examination by your betrayed partner, I can say on the other side, and Mark can say as well, is necessary because she has, as scary as it is to face the possibility of the relationship ending, if she's ever to be able to fully engage and choose it again, given what's happened, she has to go through this process at some point. There has to be a close examination of what is this, right? What does this mean for me? What does this incorporation of new data, new truth, new reality mean? And we hope that that's in favor. And most of the time, that's what we see when both addict and partner are willing to engage. But we hope that you will take that journey with your partner and do it courageously. So we've kind of talked about the beginning here for the partner as we wrap up. Let's talk a little bit about an addict's path forward in this because we mentioned earlier, right, that this process of healing for her, and we talk about this on the podcast all the time and in our Dare to Connect program, that only she can do the healing work, but he 100%, while he can't do the work for her, it behooves him to be leading out in every way possible to create a healthy growth medium for that to occur. And that means a lot of things,
It does
right?
mean things.
The first and foremost is going to that I'll bring up is examining what we call and what I think 12 step refers to it as the causes and conditions of his acting out behavior. Every time an addict hears that, they always cringe inside a little bit. That's been my experience because I know I used to cringe that way too. Um, and we need to be actively discovering, mapping out, and exploring how did we get here? What led us to this place or led me to this place? What took me to a headspace of doing the things that I did? How was I dismissive of my family, my obligations, my authentic self? What was the journey here? And in what ways did I give myself permission to go down this path along the way? And that is a journey of the ages in terms of discomfort. Nevertheless, it is absolutely required for two reasons. The first is what we're talking about, which is for her healing. If a partner needs at baseline, guys, it behooves us to figure these things out using therapy, journaling, group work, uh, other mindfulness exercises, seances, whatever it takes to get to a point to figure that out. First of all, so that she can understand that information as well and be better equipped again to make decisions about what does this mean for me in this relationship, what does that mean for us going forward, and 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 for you to be able to create safety for her. The only thing worse that we hear from partners about the betrayal itself is then that ever perpetuating underlying fear of, well, if we don't know where the hell this came from, how do we prevent it from happening again?
Yeah, if this guy doesn't even know why he did all these things, then how does he expect me to know and trust him and go forward with somebody that I have no way to predict what he's going to do or not do?
Absolutely.
You want me to choose you on that basis?
Yeah. And we do hear from guys frequently, well, I stopped. What's your problem? It's not
Oh,
enough, guys. It's
no.
not enough.
Mm-mm.
It's a great start. Don't get us wrong. That's huge. We're not minimizing that, but it's not enough.
No. The
And then
answer
the
you,
other piece of
the
that, of
answer you
course,
don't want to ever give guys is say, I don't know.
yes,
I
that
don't know.
that
You just
that's
throw your hands in. I
unacceptable.
don't know. No,
Unacceptable. That does not
not going to
work.
cut it. It's not going to cut it.
Now, the other side to this, which is just as important though, is this is not simply an exercise for your partner in creating her safety. I'll just mention it because we brought it up. This is critical for you and your journey moving forward. Because not only if a lack of knowledge not only prevent you from knowing how to best not hurt your and safeguard your partner again, guys, if you think that your acting out behavior in the past has not been a self betrayal and a self trauma, you are missing the significance of it.
Absolutely.
Your partner is not the only one taking damage. She is the what would we say? She's the uncooperative victim. You may be consenting, but you're still a victim. And the only way to stop that is not just that damage to her, but to yourself, is to do the same work for you. You can figure out what are the roots of this? How did it get to this point? Thereby helping to form the basis of this is how do I meet those needs in better, different ways so that we never go here again?
Exactly. Who am I? Who do I want to become, and how has all this gotten in the way? Are these behaviors authentic? Are they really at my true core value system? And if they're not, then I need to figure out what took me there and how to now start shifting to choose differently. One of the other key, and this, I remember how this just struck terror in my mind when I was introduced to this. But any guys listening who are engaging in these behaviors in any way that is secret or partially disclosed or hidden or whatever else, guys, you are living in what we call a secret sexual basement. Picture a house. You're down in the basement engaging in all these secret sexual behaviors, and your partner, which may and your family, which may include children, they're living in the upstairs, unknowing, not aware of all the stuff you're doing, and you're carrying on this secret sexual basement life. You need to decide if you are willing and ready to come up out of that secret sexual basement and climb up those stairs and come up and live life on the main floor. It's time to be transparent and honest and stop the deception. Are you ready to live an honest life and live as an honest man and stop the lying and stop the betrayal? That has got to happen for any of this to go forward, right?
Yes, 100%, guys, 100%. So where as we wrap up here, guys, there's a couple of things. And now this we talk about this all the time in recovery, but it should go without saying. To quote 12-step literature, generally we see people recover if they have the capacity to be honest, right?
Without question.
Lying and deception have no place in a relationship moving forward. I don't care what culture you're from, where you hail from on the globe, what country, language you speak, what color you are, it does not matter. If you are not able to tell the truth and be honest in a relationship, you cannot be chosen and accepted by your partner. Can't. It's emotional math. You take one piece out of the equation, it will not work. And so we have to be able to stop the lying, stop the betrayal, and the sobriety is an absolute requirement.
Yep.
Um, and I appreciate Mark put this into our show notes today because sometimes it's easy to forget this. The addict needs his own outside support system for about 1,000 reasons. Um, as we talked about before, guys, we hold you fully accountable. We understand better than most as addicts in long-term recovery ourselves that the origins of this thing are complicated. And the journey to healing is likewise also complicated. If you were doing it on your own, which is totally what Steve did for the first 10 years of his marriage,
Yeah. Me
you are
too.
doing it wrong.
That's
And
right.
you are setting yourself up for unnecessary trauma, unnecessary healing, and frankly, a lot of therapy bills that you wouldn't otherwise have to pay.
Yeah, yeah. You have got to turn from me to we. You got to go from I to us.
Yes.
You cannot do this by yourself. And I know your shame and you're wanting to not have your reputation ruined and wanting to still look good for people and all the rest is super scary, but you've got to get your support system and start reaching out. And the last part of it as we close up, guys, we have to decide if we're going to progressively stop living life reactively, waiting for people to call us on our crap, waiting for people to confront us, waiting for things to get bad before we take action. We have to lead out.
Yeah.
What does leading out mean? It means leaning into your betrayed partner, owning the wreckage that you have caused. Facing that you're emotionally immature and working on emotional maturity, being proactive in your recovering efforts instead of waiting for people to kick your butt, rebuilding trust actively and proactively, and what that means each day. Guys, you've got to take charge of this and not expect your partner to do that for you.
Yeah.
Big part of it.
100%. 100%. Well, guys, as always, we love all of you. We appreciate you. We may not know you personally, but we know the struggle you're in personally. And just like with the podcast and Dare to Connect, it's the same thing. It's so much more than a recovery program. This podcast is so much more than an instructional podcast. We don't just talk about this stuff, we live it. This leading out concept that Mark just talked about, we had an awesome discussion, although it was a bit hard hitting this morning during the addict session this morning. This recording is happening on Monday, November 3rd, 2025. And so it was the morning addict session. Um, if you haven't checked out Dare to Connect, we hope that you will come and give it a try. Come join us. We know we say this every year. Um, don't let 2026 be another addict year.
Please
Don't let it be another addict year. You all know what we mean when we say that.
don't lose another year.
As two guys who have lost too many years on next year and one last hurrah and all the other bullshit that we've told ourselves. Please don't let this continue. Take charge now. DareToConnectNow.com. We love to have you and your partner come and join us. Wide variety of resources there. Come check us out, and we'd love to have you come join us. By the way, also joining Dare to Connect and being an active member opens up the door for you to be able to apply to our Dare to Connect couples retreat, first one that we are doing of its kind in March of 2026. There's more information on that on the website, but we'd love to have you come give it a try and see what you think, and we'd love to have you come join that if you end up becoming a subscriber. So give that a look as well. As always, if you would like to send us questions to address on the podcast, we'd love to have those sent to us. You can send those to the same website, daretoconnectnow.com. There's just a PBSE podcast banner up at top. You click on that, and you'll be able to submit that through the contact form on that page. So,
Okay. Hey, thanks for being with us. Thanks as always for being courageous enough to wade through these crazy hard topics. Really appreciate each one of you, and we will pick things up on our next episode.
we love and appreciate you. You could be listening to Joe Rogan right now. Not that he's bad. That's a pretty awesome podcast, but you're here, and we do honor that. Have a great week, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Everything expressed on the PBSE podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.